lachatzerot Adonai libi uvesari. My whole inner life, my flesh is longing for chatzerot, the courtyards of God. Yirananu el chai, will sing toward the living God. Now, I just want you to think for a moment that the author is pining and yearning for the chatzer of God. Now, the question is this a chatzer in the sense of an actual physical courtyard? Is this person talking about going up to Jerusalem and standing in the courtyards of the temple? Well, if you look a little bit further, in verse 9, we come to our key word that I want to look at. Ashrei yoshvei vetecha od yehalalucha selah. Now, the Hebrew word for eudaimonia is osher. And here it says, who has osher? Ashrei. Now, this translation says praiseworthy. Others say blessed. They don't want to translate as happy because that might evoke a sense of pleasure gratification. Ashrei yoshvei vetecha, deeply content, spiritual being for those who dwell in your house. Od yehalalucha selah, they will praise you. Ashrei Adam ozlobach, deeply content, eudaimonia, for the person whose strength is in you, misilo bilevavam, that your pathways are in their heart. So now we know we don't mean the chatzerot of God that you've gone to a physical place. We mean something like being in the courtyard of God is that the misilot, the pathways of God, are in you. Now, this is one of my sources, by the way, for how I understand higher self, lower self. The ego self, unshaped by some directive of the good, is just going to have its own patterns. Whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you sad, whatever your judgmentalism, how you see things, we all have misilot. We all have patterns of the ego self. You know, we have them by our genetics, we have them by our upbringing, people around us, and even by a certain age, they're pretty fixed. And they don't change unless you want them to change. They can get worse with life. If you're extremely fortunate to have a lot of love and nourishing and blessing, they get a little bit better. But the fundamental way to change the misilot inside of you is to consciously bring them in line with what we call the higher self, the higher consciousness. So therefore, if you find you have a misilah, a way of thinking, and sometimes, I'll just say my counseling practice, person will come in and I realize I have a person that gets defensive all the time, which means they're hyper vigilant for insult. Anything that could be misinterpreted will be misinterpreted, and they walk through life just getting their feelings hurt by people. And I realize that's a misilah. So the misilah is, life is dangerous, I get my feelings hurt all the time. And I said, what if life weren't dangerous? What if you were like super strong? And it would just be like water off a duck's back. It just comes, it goes, doesn't matter to you. Sometimes they call it deflecting. When people say this to me, I get hurt. I say, well, just deflect. That's what we call it in boxing. You don't have to hit back every time. You don't have to get hit. You just hold your hands up and you deflect this and deflect this. And, nobody gets hurt. It's not too serious. So some folks don't know how to deflect. In fact, they walk through life with their jaw right out to get punched. I said, why don't you hide your jaw and deflect punches and don't take everything so seriously? So, I'm trying to change their misilah. Instead of the misilah, everybody's out to get me. How about the misilah of, I'm resilient, I can deflect punches, and I'm okay, I'm safe. So that's a decision. That's a decision you make. So when you say other people are like that, that oftentimes is a reflection of what you're like. Because the other world, remember, does not really ultimately create who we are. Our genetics create who we are. Our history of decisions creates who we are. Definitely the outside world triggers us, but who we are is what we bring to the table. Most of it unconscious, but when you decide to be conscious of what you're bringing, that's when transformation can take place.
Oh, say shalom.